This piece is actually based on a pastel that I did back in about 2009. And
Mhm.
that piece actually is owned by the UW co-library. My thinking with this is that I am dealing with the whole fire season.
Mm. Uh-huh.
And
Uh-huh.
so the piece will be changed to reflect the fire.
You say the piece will be changed. Are you taking what that piece that exists in Co and then transferring it to another medium? Is that right?
Yes. So my process is that I've been looking again at older pieces of work, and thinking about them from this time period as opposed to when I actually created them. What got me started was I was doing a lot of these little 10 by 10 inch acrylic strapo prints. And there were a number of them that I started thinking, boy, I wish that was larger. I really like the feel of that, the abstractness of it, all of the details. I wonder what it would look like if it was 4 foot by 4 foot instead of 10 by 10 inches. But I got to thinking about, boy, I wonder if there's a company I could work with that would weave some of these larger for me. I got to looking online and I discovered that there's an online company called Quality Tapestries who works with a number of different weaving mills, but the one that I work with through them is in North Carolina, and
Yes.
um, and they have a computerized Jacquard loom. First, I contacted them and said, "Do you ever work with an individual artist to do just singular pieces?" And so they said, "Well, we haven't, but send us an image and let's see how it turns out." So I sent them an image, and they got right back to me and said, "We love this. We'd like to try this." And so became our association. So I send a digital image to them of the work that I want to have turned into a Jacquard tapestry. They put it into their computerized system so that the computer reads the pixels of the digital image, and it's, if I am understanding it correctly, it's the computer that determines the colors of threads that need to go into the actual weaving in order to achieve what it is thinking is the color that it sees in the digital image. And then all of those threads are threaded onto the machine, and the way the computerized machine goes and turns out this tapestry for me.
Mhm.
When the early ones first came back, I liked them enough that I was like, wow, this is really cool. And I just framed them. But the more that I've looked at them, the more I thought, you know what, this can be a whole new canvas. And so
Yeah.
that's the direction that I've gone, is now I do an awful lot of embellishment. I've gone back to a traditional slow art making process, had to had to teach myself all kinds of new stitches, because growing up, my grandmother and my mom taught me the basics: running stitch, French knot. That's
Mhm.
that's about all I remembered. But I find that I have some really a certain number of basic stitches that I really like to use. So much of my work is, well, all of my work relates to place in the natural world. I come at it from a painterly process, I think, because that is part of my background. I find that what I tend to do is I mix the threads. I'm always on the hunt for new textures, new colors of threads, but then when I get them, I tend to wrap them together, or if I can't quite get the color that I want, I'm making my own color by mixing the threads together. Or
Wow. Wow.
I think about, the thickness of the thread or the yarn, and what kind of textural surface that will give me, that kind of a thing.
When you receive a jacquard back and the color isn't true to the original quite, do you find okay, that's an element of chance, right? You can say there's still some improvisation involved. But also, when you then begin to embellish it, what are your color choices? Is there something in you that says, I'm going to make this blue a little bluer with my thread, or um, I'm going to go way off from the blue that's here and add red, or how does that work? Your relationship to the thread and that you're wielding and the jacquard that you're working with.
Right. And, I guess part of the process is thinking about texture.
Yeah.
And so I tend to look at the piece, I think, and think about, okay, what am I going to pull forward and what am I going to push back visually? And
Mm-hmm.
how am I going to do that? Am I going to add a whole bunch of texture and make that happen? Or am I going to do that with color or
Mm-hmm.
a combination of the two? And so I think that's kind of my starting point. And I have to admit, my library of colors and materials has grown exponentially in terms of all of the threads and things that I have now. And so I have choices
Yeah.
that I can play with. So I tend to always be on the lookout when I go different places. And I tend to try to be really creative in terms of thinking about the materials that I might want to use. How am I best going to do with this what I want to do? And exactly what is this that I want to do? Is it the color that's most important? Is it the texture? Is it the blend of everything? All of that comes into play in my thinking process.
How physically do you do it? All I can think of is a giant hoop.
Right. I do use hoops. I have multiple sizes, but I also have built myself a PVC stitching table is what I call it. And it's just a PVC pipe that I stretch the canvas over, that I stretch the tapestry over,
Yeah.
and there you can buy these little PVC clips that will just attach the edges of the tapestry to the PVC pipe table, and that stretches it tight for me. And so when I'm working on a large piece, that's what I use. Or if I'm traveling, then I'll have the hoops. So when we were traveling this summer, I had a piece that I was working on as a commission, and I told the person that it was commissioned for, I said, this is a well-traveled piece because it's been to Canada, to Vancouver, it's been to Norway, all up and down the western Norwegian coast. It's been in 6 different states, because that's another part that's kind of delightful, is that I can just even a larger, a piece like this, I can just put a hoop on that area and just work on it right there. And that sort of ties me, I think, to women in history. I mean, because we have so many memories of women working either with their knitting needles or stitching, or cross stitching, or all of this stuff that growing up I looked at and thought, oh, who wants to do that?
Yeah,
Now I go, okay.
you are.